What's up everyone, welcome to another camera comparison video. Today I have this Redmi K40 Pro and a Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus. A lot of subscribers requested for this video and yeah, here it is. Yeah, I know that there are a lot of fake camera comparison videos on YouTube now, and that's why I always have to show that I have the smartphones. I really don't like this because I have been doing camera comparison for more than a year now, and I always do honest and detailed camera comparison videos. One request: if you end up liking this video, then please don't forget to click on the like button and subscribe to this channel. Also, there is an international giveaway going on for subscribers. Please don't forget to make a comment, cause I will choose the winner based on valid and descriptive comment. Well, it's time to start the camera comparison, but before that, a few moments for the sponsor of this video, Pitaka. Yeah, I have been using protective case from Pitaka on all my smartphones. I mean almost all. On all iPhones, OnePlus 8 Pro and Samsung smartphones. If you are looking for premium quality protective case, then you should consider Pitaka. Well, let's start our camera comparison video. The first thing you would notice in ultra-wide photos is dynamic range, and then yes, if you check carefully, then you will see that there is a big difference in color temperature. Some people asked me what is the difference between white balance and color temperature. Actually, white balance corrects or balances color temperature. White balance tries to make the photo natural by adjusting color temperature, and K40 Pro clearly has failed to do it correctly. Now the next thing caught my attention is exposure and saturation. Of course, K40 Pro has lower dynamic range, and that means it needs to increase exposure to get more details in the shadows. Yes, K40 Pro definitely got more details in the shadows, but due to its poor texture processing, increased saturation and exposure, subject and foreground lost a lot of details. However, K40 Pro images of course looks lucrative and social media ready. But the truth is, Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus portrays reality. It grabbed more details, processed more textures, kept dynamic range pretty even whether it's an outdoor photo or an indoor photo. Also, color rendition is way better on S20 Plus. When we see this type of color rendition, sometimes we like to say it's true to life or close to reality. Yeah, the difference in performance continues in indoor low light photos. The difference in color grading is more visible. Yes, contrast ratio is way lower on S20 Plus, and K40 Pro contrast ratio is higher than usual. With a very good amount of details and processed textures, Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus produced a very sharp and lucrative image. However, K40 Pro ultra-wide photos are ahead in shadows. It did not increase highlights in low light areas and kept the tonal contrast correct. That's a little surprising. Anyway, considering the price of K40 Pro, I would say K40 Pro ultra-wide performance is good enough, but not as good as what Xiaomi fans expected. Okay, wait. We should check other sensors before we make any judgment. Okay, you may have been waiting for this comparison between photos taken with the main sensor of these two smartphones. All of these pictures were taken on auto mode with AI enabled and auto HDR. Of course, both of these have pro modes, so if you have the time to dial in and switch between options to get a pro shot of your choice, then you can. But most of the general users uses auto mode, and I feel like this represents true pros and cons of the smartphones. 12 megapixel sensor on Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus versus 64 megapixel sensor on Redmi K40 Pro. Actually, the numbers didn't reflect in performance. 12 megapixel sensor seems a bit better with better stock camera, but yeah, let's go through the comparison. We see a similar trend. I mean, main sensor photos are somehow similar to those ultra-wide photos. Again, before you make any judgment, the main difference is not in white balance, it's highlights and ambience. Redmi K40 Pro continued to produce images with pretty high highlights and ambience, which along with a bit saturation makes things look stunning and attractive, but the whole image is a bit far from reality. Yes, color temperature is actually a bit warm on K40 Pro, but not too much like before. It's almost in line. Once again, Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus rendered colors with perfection, which doesn't make things as punchier and lucrative as K40 Pro, but with good exposure and better dynamic range, shows the touch of a flagship. Yes, it is a 1-year-old smartphone with old SoC, and K40 Pro should have performed better with triple ISP and higher synthetic power. Now there are three aspects where both failed to perform. Shadows are almost not visible in indoor low light environment. None of these two smartphones managed to get enough shadow details. Contrast ratio keys are far from the center. One got low key and another processed with high key. Next is details and textures. I truly thought Redmi K40 Pro with newer, better SoC and bigger sensor would get more details, but I think I was wrong. Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus conquered another segment. But no, you don't have to agree with me. If you think Redmi K40 Pro is better than Samsung S20 Plus, then okay, it's your preference and I truly respect your preference. No, Redmi K40 Pro doesn't have any telephoto lens. Redmi K30 Pro Zoom had a pretty nice telephoto lens for 3x optical zoom. It's a clear downgrade. If you are thinking about K40 Pro Plus, no, that one also doesn't have any telephoto lens. Okay, Samsung actually implemented a 64 megapixel sensor with a telephoto lens for 1.1x optical zoom and 3x hybrid zoom. That works perfectly well, at least beside Redmi K40 Pro digital zoom. Definitely more details and textures with a better cropping algorithm helps Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus to produce a sharper image. Not only that, this telephoto lens has optical image stabilization and that helps a lot to get a steady image. If you check other attributes, then no, you are not gonna find a lot of differences. We need to do pretty heavy pixel peeping and nitpicking to get any other differences. But really, what other differences would you need? One thing worth mentioning that as K40 Pro uses its main sensor, these 3x zoom photos have the similar properties in it. I mean similar to those main sensor photos. You are the judge here. Please make a comment and let me know what do you think. When I first bought Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus, they used to call it live focus mode. Yeah, that's what Samsung used to call portrait mode on S20 Plus at the beginning. But now, after updating to One UI 3.1, it is correctly named as portrait mode and it takes great portrait photos. Thanks to its 64 megapixel telephoto sensor with OIS and 0.3 megapixel TOF sensor, which really does better than other depth sensors that we see in other cheap smartphones. A lot depends on stock camera application or the algorithm that processes things at the background. When I compare portrait photos, I care about bokeh effect, edge detection, amount of textures processed in the subject, and the separation line blend. After checking a lot of portrait photos taken by these two smartphones, it is clear that there is a difference in white balance and tonal contrast. But I am surprised to see that the difference is pretty marginal. Redmi did well here. Color curve and saturation is also similar, which once again surprised me, and then I got to get the real differences. I mean differences in edge detection, edge cutouts, separation line blend performance is also pretty average on Redmi K40 Pro. Let's crop in and check. Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus actually has more details, processed more textures and portrays reality. That bokeh effect at the background is not as heavy as K40 Pro and that makes the images even more ravishing. I have found a few issues on both of the smartphones. Samsung S20 Plus sometimes takes a bit longer to lock the focus. I mean autofocus in portrait sometimes just travel around the focus area before getting to the face. It happened a few times but I don't think it's a trend. And Redmi K40 Pro takes a while to actually grab portrait photos. It's like there is a second or a split second gap between the moment you click the shutter and when the actual photo is grabbed. Color rendition and other aspects of portrait photos on both of these smartphones are not that different. If you ask me, then yes, I would select Samsung S20 Plus for portrait due to its details in the subject and bokeh effect at the background of the image.
Memories fade away, wither out, but I can't ignore.
Yeah, we have been taking photos with a lot of smartphones and it got dark. We thought, why don't we try low light portrait photos? Yeah, Samara warned me that she would look like a ghost in darkness and I think she was right. What do you think? Do you really think any of these portrait photos are usable, or would you share photos of this quality on your social media? After checking around 15 to 20 photos, I have selected the top 6 photos and you can imagine, other photos are even worse than these. This is the best that we can extract from Redmi K40 Pro. I mean at least at this time. Maybe things will get better with updates in future. For now, Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus is clearly the better choice in low light portrait photography. But what about night mode main sensor photos? Yeah, here it's a bit tricky and truly depends on personal preference. Do you want visibility? Do you want a photo that depicts reality? Do you want a picture that balances between brightness and details? I prefer a good balance between noise, sharpness, highlights and textures. I have intentionally chosen this place. In my other camera comparison videos, Mi 10T Pro did well and Mi 11 failed. Yes, I have tried from a few different angles and lighting options and the results are the same. Yes, none of these two smartphones did as good as any other flagships of 2021. But Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus seems a bit better. It has better color rendition and in terms of grabbing the reality, it did better. S20 Plus also processed more textures. In terms of color grading and white balance, S20 Plus did better, but it has very high shadows and ambience. On the other hand, K40 Pro just crushed the shadows and increased highlights beyond acceptable boundary. Moving on to selfie camera, and there is a realistic difference in performance. Everything is better on Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus selfie photos. I mean, from any aspect, K40 Pro selfies are almost incomparable with S20 Plus. S20 Plus continued to produce photos with more details and textures while Redmi K40 Pro applied heavy skin smoothing beauty effect. Color rendition and skin tone is also better on S20 Plus. Even after trying hard, I did not find any point that puts K40 Pro selfie photos ahead of Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus. Okay, I'm not going to describe these selfie portraits cause there is an international smartphone giveaway going on for subscribers. I would choose someone based on a valid and descriptive comment. Why don't you try to differentiate between these selfie portraits and make a comment? Now these are front camera videos and I'm not surprised to see that both of these selfie sensors got some kind of stabilization. Before Mi 10 Ultra, Xiaomi never provided good stabilization on front camera. But what surprised me is K40 Pro has better front camera stabilization than S20 Plus. Anyway, color grading and dynamic range is somehow better on Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus. Even if it processed with higher saturation, it looks a bit better. It is neither surprising and nor amazing for Redmi fans to see that S20 Plus grabbed more details and textures. The whole video is sharper than K40 Pro. Okay, these clips were recorded at 4K 30 frames per second. I think S20 Plus produced this video with better white balance. In terms of details, sharpness and color rendition, I would go with S20 Plus. What do you think? Do you agree? If I haven't mentioned yet, then yes, S20 Plus got OIS on main sensor and in 4K optical image stabilization helps a lot. And I must say, stabilization of S20 Plus is as good as any new flagship of 2021. Considering that K40 Pro only comes with EIS, it did good too. Okay, it's time to wrap up and the truth is K40 Pro did good, but not as good as what we would like. Please comment and let me know what do you think. If you have liked this video, then please don't forget to click on the like button and subscribe to this channel.
Made our peace, said goodbye, 'cause the further we carry on, through the fight, the